Good evening and Happy New Year. I'd like to call the Old Bridge Township January 7th, 2019 meeting to order. Please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silence and for our prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As customary in this chamber, we remain standing for a moment of silence to remember those who are protecting our freedoms, both here and abroad, for our first responders, for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, and this evening for one of our township employees, Anna Feltz's father, who passed away this December. A moment of silence, please. The prayer, Mr. Pescitti.
Dear Lord, bless thy servants in the ministry of public affairs who serve thee in this chamber. Give them quiet minds and hearts that they may hear thy voice. Help them to know when to speak, when to be silent. Give them strength to oppose the wrong and uphold the right. And grant that they have a good conscience and soul at peace with thee and with one another. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated.
This meeting is being held in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been given to the newspaper, and notice of the meeting has been posted in public places. Next open public meeting of the council will be held on Monday, January 28th, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. What do we do? Okay. Mrs. Brown?
Present.
Mr. Cahill?
Here.
And Dr. Greenberg? Here. Mr. Merwin?
Here.
Attendance.
Just sat down in here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Pescitti?
Here.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
President Soha?
Here.
9 present.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone, wish everyone a Happy New Year. Okay. We'll begin by council appointments. The first one will be, oh, Stella, go ahead.
Before we start with council appointments, as you are aware from your packets, we didn't receive resumes for each of the open positions by the cutoff date. Any appointments that are left open after tonight's meeting, I'm going back out Tuesday, and we'll go out until from the 8th to the 23rd for more resumes. And then if we get resumes in, I'll put those open appointments back on next council meeting. If we don't get resumes in, then we'll go into February, and then I'll put them back out.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Stella. So our first council appointment will be Utility Authority MUA term expiring 1/31/2019, seat to be taken 2/1/2019 for a 5-year term which expires 1/31/23.
I'd like to nominate Anita Greenberg.
Do I have a second? I will second Dr. Greenberg. So the
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
No.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
No.
Mr. Murphy?
No.
Mr. Pescitti?
Abstain.
Excuse me?
abstain.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
5 yes, 3 no, 1 abstention.
Next will be Utility Authority MUA vacancy, alternate number 1. Term expires 1/31/2019, to be taken 2/1/2019 for a 1-year term which expires 1/31/19. Do I have a?
Council President.
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Tom Galante.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Who was the second?
Adina Brown.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. So Mr. Rizzoli was the nominee and Mrs. Brown was our second.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
No.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
No.
Mr. Murphy?
Pass.
Mr. Pescitti?
Abstain?
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
We have to go back
Back,
to
yes,
Mr. Murphy?
please.
Yes.
So it's 6 yes, 2 no, and 1 abstention.
Okay. Ethics Board, regular member, term expires 12/31/2023.
Nominate Anthony Wilkinson.
Second?
Okay, so Anthony Wilkinson, nominated by Dr. Greenberg Belli, second by Mr. Pescitti.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill? And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay. Now, Ethics Board clergy member, we did not receive a resume, correct?
No, right.
Okay. Next will be Housing Authority, regular member, term expires 5/31/2024.
I nominate June Dungy.
Second. June Dungy, Dr. Greenberg Belli, second by Mrs. Walker.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Open Space Council member, term expire,
Darby Walker.
I'll second it. Okay, so nominated by Mrs. Dr. Greenberg Belli, second by myself.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Open Space Council member, term expires 12/31/2019.
I'd like to nominate Anita Greenberg.
I'll second.
Okay. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Now, the open space for the residents, no one applied. I have no resume, so we will not be appointing this evening.
Right.
Planning Board Council member, Class 3. Term expires 12/31/2019. Do I have someone? Okay, so now, Mr. Attorney, what is the process?
Well, it's council appointment, so either somebody can volunteer or somebody can move someone to be a member. At some point, it has to be filled.
This evening, or?
Well, I'm not sure, when does the planning board reorganize?
They reorganized this week, I believe.
This week, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly would be helpful to have the member, if not, it will stay
The
vacant.
council
Okay,
person.
we'll start this way. Do I have someone who would like to volunteer for the position of planning board member? Okay, so who will nominate Mr. Merwin?
Second.
I nominate.
Okay, so Dr. Greenberg Belli will nominate him, and Mr. Murphy will second him. Roll call.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin? Yes. Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
No.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
Public Agency Compliance Officer, Himanshu Shah. Term expires 12/31/2019.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cahill, second by Dr. Greenberg Belli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill? Yes. Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
President Soha.
Yes.
9 yes.
Recreation Advisory Board Council Member.
I
Term-
nominate Mary Sohar.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Nominated by Dr. Greenberg Belli, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
and Dr. Greenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Merwin,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
President Soha.
Yes.
9 yes.
Recreation Advisory Board Council Member, term expires 12/31/2019.
I nominate Debbie Walker.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
and Dr. Greenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Merwin,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
President Soha.
Yes.
9 yes.
Recreation Advisory Board Council Member,
I move Mark Rizzoli. I decline it.
you're declining the position, okay?
I nominate John Murphy.
Okay, so Mr. Rizzoli has nominated Mr. Murphy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Merwin.
Mr. Brown, Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
and Dr. Greenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Merwin, Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
President Soha.
Yes.
9 yes.
Next, Recreation Advisory Board, term ends 12/31/2020.
I nominate Tony Tanaselli.
Second? Mr. Cahill. Okay.
And Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Merwin,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
President Soha.
Yes.
9 yes.
Recreation Advisory Board, term expires 12/31/2020.
I nominate Isaac Croson.
Okay. Okay.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
and Dr. Greenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Merwin,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
President Soha.
Yes.
9 yes.
Recreation Advisory Board, term expires 12/31/2020. I'd like to nominate Mr. Frank Santoro.
Second it.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
and Dr. Greenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Merwin,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
President Soha.
Yes.
9 yes. Please talk into your mics.
Recreation Advisory Board, term expires 12/31/2020.
I'll nominate Dennis Kilduff.
Okay. Cahill second.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
and Dr. Greenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Merwin,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti,
No.
Mr. Rizzoli,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
President Soha.
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
Recreation Advisory Board, term expires 12/31/2020.
I nominate Motaz Diab.
Second. Motaz. Okay, so,
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg, Mr. Merwin,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
President Soha.
yes. Recreation Advisory Board, term expires 12/31/2020.
I'll nominate Stephanie Babbitts. I'll second it.
Dr. Greenberg.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes.
and Dr. Greenberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Walk,
Yes.
Mr. Merwin? Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay, so there is remaining spots open on recreation. We did not have additional resumes, so if anyone is interested, please put in a resume, as we will be appointing at the next meeting. As far as rent stabilization is concerned, we did not have any resumes put in, so if anyone, again, is interested, please put in a resume, as we will be appointing in January, at the end of January. Thank you. Tax Search Officer, Dawn Schwaboda, term ends 12/31/2019.
Move it.
Move it.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cahill, second by Dr. Greenberg.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Tax Assessment Officer, Stella Ward, term expires 12/31/2019.
Move
Move
it.
it. Second.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Zoning Board, regular member, term expires 12/31/2022.
I'd like to
Nominate
nominate
Leon
Leon
Scogno.
Scogno. Second.
Okay. So Leon Scogno has been nominated by Dr. Greenberg Belli or Mrs. Walker, by Mrs. Walker.
Second.
And seconded by Dr. Greenberg. And, oh, Tony, I'm sorry, Mr. Pescetti, sorry.
Pescetti?
Yes, Mr. Pescetti.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Zoning Board member, term expires 12/31/2022.
I nominate Doreen Chevalier.
Second.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Zoning Board alternate number 1 member, term expires 12/31/2021.
I nominate John Dewhurst.
Second.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Zoning Board alternate number 2 member, term expires 12/31/2021.
Benjamin Stoner.
I'll second.
Mary Sorensen.
Okay, so it's Debbie and myself.
Walker and you. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin? Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the appointments. Bill listing, bill list of 12/31/18. Mrs. Walker?
Yes. Accounts payable, December 31st, 2018, $468,821.21.
Do I have a motion?
Move it. I'll second it.
Okay, Dr. Greenberg Belli, Mrs. Walker.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Payroll, December 7th, 2018, $924,675.04.
Do I have a motion?
I'm sorry, is this the December 31st or the 7th?
December 7th, 2018.
No, it's,
No.
I believe it's December
December 31st.
Yeah, wait.
31st is the bill list final, but the payroll was actually on December 21, 2018.
Okay, payroll as of
That's the final
12/21, yeah.
payroll of December.
Right,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
year. Okay.
Small, very small letters.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Need a motion.
We need a motion for that, please.
I'll move it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moved by Mr. Cahill, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Bill list.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Mr. Belli?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy? Mr. Piscetty? Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker? Yes. President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Payroll overtime, December 7th, 2018, $147,259.
Okay, can we have a breakout, Mr. Shaw?
Yes, thank you. As Councilwoman Walker indicated, the payroll for that period was $147,259. While there was two issue with that, two concern about that payroll, is that was a holiday time, obviously, vacation time, and holidays that cause some overtime. And also, as customary final payroll, employee gets their accumulated comp time for the year. For that period, for the 2018, the final pay included for all 9 bargaining units overtime, comp time was $99,636.81, and the net payroll was $47,622.19. For the police department, total was payroll was $95,594.14. When you deduct for the grants of $533.82 and deduct ETO time, $67,276.18. The net payroll for the period was $27,784.14, representing 367 men and women hours, and there were 3 officers injured on duty.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shaw. Do I have a motion for the overtime?
Mrs. Soho, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I don't mean to be a stickler, but
No.
it's December 31st for payroll as of 12/21/18.
Yes, it's December
It's read
21st.
in as January 7th. I just want to correct the record.
It's a December, this is a December bill list.
Right.
The payroll was December
Right,
21, 2018.
Right, I think it was read in as January 7th. That's
Okay.
why I just want to correct the record, so.
Okay.
that's all.
No, thank you, Mr. Cahill. Thank you very much.
Board was given, may have misprinted a date.
I'm just looking what's in Novus, so I'm just
Okay.
reading off.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Need a motion.
All right, so now we need a motion, please, for the overtime.
I'll move it.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, second by Mr. Rizzoli. Mr. Cahill made the motion.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Abstain.
Abstain? Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscetty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstention.
We have a bill list for January 7, 2019. Accounts payable, $10,185,377.02.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Walker, second by Mr. Piscitty.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin? Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscetty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
And that concludes the bill list.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Walker. We have no public hearing and ordinances for second reading. We will do now preliminary public comments to council, subject to the following conditions and restrictions. During the preliminary public portion of the meeting, any person may address the Township Council on any subject matters for a maximum period of 5 minutes. Any such person desiring to speak during the preliminary public portion shall first sign a list maintained by the Township Clerk for such purpose. Comments during the preliminary public comment portion of the meeting shall not encompass second reading ordinances or any other matter for which comment or a public hearing is to occur at the meeting.
Okay, Bill Bath?
Good evening, everybody.
Good
My name is
evening.
Bill Baith. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I am now the president of the Madison Park Volunteer First Aid Squad this year. I've been down there 32 years. This is shameful, shameful that you are not releasing our monies to pay our bills. Well, our noses are at the waterline right now. We're going down. You're endangering the public safety as far as I'm concerned with response times and help. We answer everything. We've even answered 9/11 the day it happened. We answer any call, even if Grandma falls down and she can't get up. You want to continue this? It's shameful. It's disgusting that you will not release our monies. It is disgusting. I don't care if we're in arbitration with Old Bridge Thames or anybody else. We're drowning. We are volunteers. Donations over the years have dropped over 50% since I've started 32 years ago. 50%. We're out shaking the can and we're lucky we get enough for a case of soda. It's sinful that this is going on. I'm surprised that this council and administration, that nobody's raised their hands and stood up and said, let's give them their money. You're worried about Old Bridge Thames? Old Bridge Thames is working fine with the squads. In fact, they go down to Aberdeen to help people. A lady was waiting 59 minutes the other night in Aberdeen, laying on her back, and they sent Old Bridge Thames down finally to help them. You want to continue this? You're creating a monster, and it's going to come back and bite you somewhere. Believe me when I tell you, 32 years I've got down there. I've seen everything from delivering kids to catastrophes, and we responded. But right now, by you holding our monies back, you're going to cut that back, our responses. I hope tonight something can be done and get moving. This is sinful. Sinful. Believe me when I tell you sinful. I know most of you people personally, and I'm very surprised at you, from the administration down through the council. So if you would please do something tonight, get something moving where we can get our monies and keep our head above the water instead of drowning, and continue to help our public, our citizens in this town. I've helped I don't know how many people in this town. I was doing over 500 calls a year at one time myself, okay? But now you're pulling the plug on us by not releasing our monies. It's like pulling somebody off life support. That's just what you're doing. We're so close to dropping dead right now, it's not even funny. Please try to do something tonight. Please. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Karen Porter?
Good evening. Karen Porter, Vice President of Madison Park Volunteer First Aid Squad. I joined the squad to help my community, and as of this week, we're no longer going to be able to do that. January 1st, we had $215 in our checking account. Our squad runs on the stipend from the township and on donations from the community. And as you just heard Bill say, donations are down over 50%. People just don't have the money anymore to donate. And we still have not received our stipend from the township for 2018. Without some money, we are going to have to close our doors and stop doing what everybody on the squad joined to do, to help people. Please do something for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
George and Tony? Antonelli, sorry.
I'll sit over here. Good evening, everybody. My name is George Antonelli. I'm the captain of the Madison Park Volunteer First Aid Squad. I was here last month asking you people to help us out and give us our money, and for some reason, basically nothing happened. I've been volunteering in this town going on 32 years already. I've done many years with the fire department, and I'm currently with the first aid squad, about 18 years into the first aid squad. We are going to reduce our services next month. Now, there's three volunteer squads that don't bill. Madison Park, Cheesequake, and Lawrence Harbor. We refuse to bill the public because we care about the people in Old Bridge. So we decided that we're volunteers, we're going to stay volunteers. We're just about out of money. We've tried every avenue to get money. Donations are down. Like Bill said, 50, 70%. We're just not getting enough to operate with and keep up our expenses, our daily expenses. Somebody here has to do something to get our 2018 stipend from the town. I know that you made a decision to choke the volunteers, and I don't know why you did that. Now, I know that we're the mother company of the Old Bridge Thames First Aid Squad, but I'm going to ask the attorney this question. Sir, who is the plaintiff on the lawsuit against the town?
I'm not going to address litigation matters, but I can tell you this, because there's a few people there. It's not as simple as, it's a complicated issue. Obviously, any monies that the township has provided in the past, those are simply donations. It's not mandatory. Those are things that the town has over the years provided. And I think anyone who's been involved in the EMS program with this township over the last 8 years knows it's been very complicated regarding response times, volunteers, OB-TEMS, and there's an amalgamation of issues that have to be resolved. The mayor had gone great strides to try to resolve that. The town had given more monies than they were even at some points required by law to do. And part of the issue is that the volunteers make up OB-TEMS. That's something that all of you should know, that OB-TEMS doesn't exist in and of itself. The volunteers are the memberships, or the membership, is comprised as OB-TEMS. What I have a hard time understanding.
Old Bridge Thames does not employ 100% of the volunteers in the town.
That's what I said. The officers, each of the volunteer squad makes up
There's
OB-TEMS.
one representative on the board. I understand that.
So certainly, the three squads who don't bill
are in trouble.
Have authority.
And they're going to start cutting down on the service at night, sir.
Excuse me, can I talk? You asked me a question. I'm answering.
Ask your question. Who the plaintiff was on the lawsuit? Who is the plaintiff on the lawsuit against the town?
OB-TEMS.
Okay, what does that got to do with Madison Park Volunteer First Aid Squad? Cheesequake Volunteer First Aid Squad.
The volunteer squad.
Volunteer First Aid Squad.
The volunteer squads make up OB-TEMS.
You took it upon yourself to take it out on us so that we would fold.
The volunteer squads
and stop
make
the
up
lawsuit.
OB-TEMS.
That's the reason why you did this.
The volunteer squads make up OB-TEMS. Volunteer squads can control what OB-TEMS does.
1/5 ownership. Okay? 1/5 ownership.
So
and you tell me who the plaintiff is. It's Old Bridge Thames Incorporated.
Which is made up of the volunteer squads who control what, should be controlling what OB-TEMS does. So that issue is the control. I don't know for a fact.
You're assuming that.
I'm not assuming anything. All I'm relating is what makes it up.
Your strategy to hold back our money is going to cut the service of the north end of this township.
I don't know what the strategy. I'm not disclosing strategy. I'm talking about strategy.
From Route 34 to Ernstton Road, north and south, it's going to cut the service.
You can yell all you want. The township will always provide EMS service. There's no danger of people not providing EMS service.
And who's going to provide it at night, sir, when we can't get out there?
The township has the ability to provide the EMS service to the extent that it's required. And they will always do that.
And what is that going to do? Cost the council a lot more money? The township a lot more money to put paid service out there at night?
Actually, based upon bids received last year, that wouldn't have been the case. So we don't have to get into that issue. Ultimately, it's cheap.
Please do something. Thank you. We are going to go out of service. It's going to affect the whole north end of the township if we don't get money to operate. Thank you.
Carrie Boninatis.
That's how Michael.
Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Bonadies. I don't break this. Happy New Year, everybody. I just want to say there was some appointments made tonight to the OBMUA, and they're 5-year appointments. I was hoping I would get to speak before the appointments were made, because I have spoken to this council before concerning senior citizens in this community, and how tough it is on all of us, not only senior citizens, to meet our water bills, because I would have liked to seen a senior citizen put on this board, so that maybe you would have a little input about what we go through once we're retired and live in Old Bridge. However, I would hope that the people that were approved and appointed tonight will take that into consideration. It's a 5-year term. That's an awful long time for anybody to be on the OBMUA, and I would certainly hope that they would take the seniors in Old Bridge into consideration. Thank you.
That's it.
We are now going to close the public portion, and we will go to council member comments. Anyone on my left? Mr. Rizzoli.
Very much. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish the residents of Old Bridge a happy, healthy, prosperous new year. I'd like to thank our fire department, police department, EMS squads, Department of Public Works, municipal workers, volunteer, parents, community groups for their dedication and hard work throughout the year. Listening to the gentleman speak this evening, I recently had the opportunity to discuss this with Councilwoman Brown after I received a correspondence from one of the first aid squads concerning their financial hardship due to the fact they did not receive their 2018 yearly stipend. In the past, other first aid squad representatives have come here before council, have approached us to discuss the same issue. Based upon that, I'm putting a motion on the floor to release the money, which was budgeted in the 2018 budget, to release all stipends to the first aid, and I'm looking for a second at this time.
I second that.
Before you take a vote, again, I've had a discussion with Councilman Rizzoli about the issue. I think it's a matter in which, I'm not going to get into particulars because there's a litigation matter, and I think as everyone on council, excluding Mr. Merwin because he hasn't participated in those discussions because he has been he had to be recused himself, that it's a matter that's premature, that shouldn't be proceeded because of the fact that it does involve litigation matters. It's been discussed in executive session, and frankly, I'm disappointed that the council would take this particular action without it being further discussed or before being discussed with council and the entire council, because of the fact that it does involve things that have been discussed in executive session involving litigation, and frankly, you're putting the township in a position, the township, which is the defendant, in a position where it impacts and jeopardizes the litigation. Again, I think it's important that elected officials recognize litigation matters, that those matters be kept privileged and not discussed. And frankly, what this is just is the backdoor way of doing that. Again, I would recommend, based upon these discussions, the fact that it does involve litigation matter, that would be inappropriate at this time for the council to proceed on that motion without it being fully vetted and discussed with all the council members. And again, I can't emphasize enough. I cannot emphasize enough, and that fact that when matters are discussed in executive session, that means they're not to be discussed in public. Clearly, an individual came up here and claimed to know what trial strategy was. I would hope that no member of the council had any of those discussions with this individual or any other member outside of executive session, because it clearly jeopardizes the township. It puts the township in jeopardy. It puts the township in a position that it shouldn't have to be, and exposes the township. We know that to the extent that the EMS coverage is required, it will be provided. It will be provided. So again, So again,
Public comment is over.
So
Please,
again-
Please, let him finish.
I would ask council, while I understand with the motion, I would ask council not to approve the motion, because I believe it's premature and impacts the township in a negative manner, and it's something that shouldn't occur without it being further vetted and discussed by council as part of litigation matters.
Mr. Roselli, we always do that up here.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, I agree with what you're saying. I do recognize, and I've said this to many people in the public throughout the town who have a complaint about this, this really puts us, as council members in an awkward position, obviously. This started before I got here, over a year ago. I've been really doing my best to stand up for the first aid squads and everyone in town on different matters. I think what happens, though, is people don't really understand all the parameters. So I think this is just our position on it so we can let everyone know that we really are trying to fight for these, different organizations. I do understand, of course, that legally we're bound as well, and I've been explaining that. I definitely don't share anything that we talk about in executive session to anyone. So, maybe you can advise us. I can say right now, and if this is legally okay, if people want to volunteer or they want to donate to these squads, please do so. If you have a business or many businesses or you're just a community member and you're watching this, donate. If that's what you see we need and this is what these, squads need, then go ahead and take the opportunity to do that. But again, we just want everyone to know that we are fighting for you guys. This is something that we kind of fell into. We're doing the best we can.
If I could just address that, and interestingly enough, the administration had been fighting for the volunteer squads as well. Part of the predicament that some of them find themselves is a result of events that occurred, and that the township did try to help them, and unfortunately, the way the situation has arisen is that with OB Thames involved, it's made things difficult, and they're the ones who filed the litigation. So in addition, it also put the township in a difficult situation because they didn't ask for the litigation, they didn't want the litigation, they wanted to work out a plan that would be beneficial to all parties. And unfortunately, that's become very difficult over the last year or so. And again, as I said, OB Thames is comprised of the volunteers. The volunteers can control what OB Thames does. Certainly, the township doesn't. And I can appreciate your concern and Councilman Rizzoli's concern. Again, I think you have to also recognize the situation that the township finds itself.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Pescetti.
can I make a suggestion? Can we go into executive session now and discuss this? Just move the agenda around?
Well, I have a litigation matter listed with respect to it, but again, I don't want to get in details because that's one of the things that we can't discuss because it involves multiple aspects. So, again, it's up to council, but I think the issue is clear at this point because I think it's multifaceted. It's not as simple, that there's funding available that wasn't provided. I think it's more to it than that, and a simple, it'll take some time to discuss the myriad of issues involved.
Okay. Well, we do have a motion. However, all right, Mr. Murphy?
Is this whole executive session thing, is this a law that we can't pay them their money, or is it how you feel?
Again.
Your decision?
No. Again, I'm not going to discuss the particulars of it. And again, I give advice. I would hope that the council and the township administration would heed the advice, and it's not something that I'm going to have a public discussion about. Okay. Because, as you know, Mr. Murphy, this particular issue and other issues involving the entire litigation have been discussed or multiple times in executive session.
Yes.
And I'm not going to disclose, not talk about what was discussed, other than these types of issues were covered and unanimously agreed upon by all council members who were present.
Yes, but you made it sound like one of the councilmen brought something out of executive session.
Again, I can only, based upon what one individual stated, I said, based upon those comments, he's saying what strategy is. And again, I'm just advising council that I hope that that is not the case, that nothing is being discussed. I'm just reacting to a comment made by one of the members in the public.
Okay, well, I'm just looking to do the right thing here, and safety is a big issue here. I'm hoping we're not just waiting for them to go bankrupt and then we can get rid of them.
Again, Mr. Murphy, it's not...
Never came up in executive session. That's my
Mr.
thought.
Murphy, I'm not going to discuss it, and I would, again, ask council members not to discuss the topic.
Okay.
I mean, you have a motion on the table, and you had a second, and I gave my advice, so...
Is there anyone else that has a comment?
Yeah, I would.
No, you can't.
Well, you just, as Mr. Murray, you just have to be careful what you're...
I understand.
All right.
I just have one question to the council, to the legal counsel. Would this council be able to pass that resolution, or that resolution ordering the payment of their...
So again, the only thing I would say is that there's a motion and second on the table. And then it's, as far as my recommendation is that, you not proceed with that particular vote at this time. And then ultimately, it's council's decision as to how they want to proceed.
Yes, Mr. Cahill.
Yeah, so, obviously this is an emotional issue. We've heard from the EMS squads. I guess my frustration is that 8 of the 9 council people have been in executive sessions. Mr. Merwin has been excluded because of his position with OTM, OB-TEMS, we understand that. And I've heard all the details around this and all the sensitivities around this and the fact that we are in litigation. And it's been explained lots of times. And we're putting out the council people need to put the township as well as the EMS in the forefront of this, okay? And we understand some of the issues that have not been discussed in public. And I would ask the council to reconsider this vote because, again, I think based on what the attorney's saying, we're putting the township in a very, very bad position. I'll be voting no based on advice of council. Thank you.
And
I would make the same recommendation for all council members.
Okay. Yeah, and I just want to say again, I think, again, we were, all pretty new when this decision came through. So, I'm perfectly fine with admitting that, yeah, during that time, with not having full awareness and full knowledge of the scope of what was going on, the emotionality of everything, it may have been a decision I made in haste. But right now, my goal is to let everyone know that I'm working for it. I will not be disrespected. Nobody better call me and say anything disrespectful because they don't like what I'm doing. I want to make that clear right now. But I'm making sure that I'm fighting for people in the town. So that being said, right now, if it's legal advice for us not to move forward with this, then I just might not do that because we also have to make sure we protect the town in ways that perhaps people in the public will never understand. Because when you're on council, it's easy to sit in the room, in the stands, and make a lot of complaints, but you don't know how it feels to actually know what's going on behind the scenes. And sometimes I can't talk about it, sometimes other people can't talk about it, and that needs to be accepted. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. Walker?
Yes, I don't like seeing this being made into a political issue. We all do care about the safety of the residents, but we have to follow the advice of our attorney. We've been in executive session, and I don't think this should have been brought forward in the public, especially since anyone that's been in executive session knows. And we all care about the residents. I don't like being said that we don't. My husband's been a volunteer for 30 years. We love volunteers. I just don't think you should make this political.
Mr. Piscitti.
I received a letter. The squad was asking for a loan against the stipend. And, I understand their plight. I mean, they don't have any operating funds. And I understand, with the legality with OB Thames. However, couldn't there be a way to lend them the $40,000
Just,
for now?
again, the town, municipalities aren't in a position where they can legally make loans to private entities. So that's not something under statutory authority that they're able to do.
Anyone else for comments? Wait, you already spoke. Go ahead. You want? All right, Mr. Rizzoli.
Just to clarify, nothing I said was anything that was discussed in executive session. Okay, I am putting public safety. That's my concern, which is all our concern. I never said that it wasn't anybody's concern up here. To throw the word politics is absolutely unprofessional. Okay, we have first aides coming here and concerned about money. They're going to go under. Okay, I addressed it. If no one wants to vote on it, then fine, don't vote on it. But don't sit here and say things are political. Public safety is public safety.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes, based on the public safety, I've reached out to the police department. They said we are protected. This should not be litigated in this courtroom. It is in the courts. It will be litigated there. Our hands are tied. We have taken advice from our attorney, and I will not jeopardize the entire town or myself or the entire council in this incident. I understand completely, and I feel bad that the volunteers are in this situation, but everyone has to understand, Old Bridge Temps is made up of the volunteers. The volunteers are Old Bridge Temps. There are 5 squads. 3 of them are a majority of the 5. So really, you do have a say more at your board meetings for the Old Bridge Temps. And then that could be resolved before it even came here. So it is unfortunate, but I am emphasizing public safety, and I've been assured by our police department that we are safe. And every resident should know that too. We should not, as elected officials, we should not lead, we should lead and do not cause chaos. And I will emphasize again, Public Safety, Director of Public Safety, the police department assures us that we will be safe, and everyone should know if they call, they will be responded to. And right now we are in litigation, so I'm going to go along with the advice of our attorney. Thank you.
This is council comments. Please, this is council comments. We do have a comment portion at the end of the meeting as well. Anyone else for council comments? Okay, all right. I'll close the council comments by saying I also feel that we should not have a sense of public alarm. I received a phone call from an 83-year-old woman in tears that, she thought that she was not going to have an ambulance respond for her husband, who was on oxygen. That's just unbelievable. So again, all of us up here, sitting up here, I don't think there's one of us here does not care about volunteers or has not worried that this is a hard situation for the squads. But again, we were told public safety-wise that we are safe. We were told by the attorney that we had to keep this and keep our hands tied and leave it right now, unfortunately. I would love to be the one to say, okay, everything is great, we're going to do whatever we can for you. That's a feel-good, but we have to be realistic as elected officials. We have a responsibility, and sometimes it's not always the popular thing. But believe me, at the end of the day, we are all here. We are all trying to do the best that we can for this situation. This resolution was not on the agenda, so I would have appreciated someone reaching out at least and putting it on here so we would have time, to talk about it and discuss it. Bill, that's a different letter from a resolution. So anyway, that's the comments that I have to make as well. I just want the public to know they are safe, and we are trying to work on this situation for the best resolution for everyone.
So you have a motion and a...
Mr. Antonelli, please. Mr. Antonelli, please. This is now the council portion. You were able to speak. We gave you your time, and we will give you time at the end to speak again as well. We are being told, I'm not going to,
You know, at this point, Madam President, again, you have to comport yourself appropriately. If you don't, you'll be removed, okay? That's the way it's going to happen, because the circus is over. It's over. Excuse me, it's not a discussion. You'll be removed, because we've had the discussion, your questions were addressed, so at this point, there's a motion on the floor, and what you should do is a roll call and move on.
Okay.
all right?
Roll call for the motion. Mrs. Brown?
Abstain. Oh, for the motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can abstain for that or just pass?
You can abstain.
Abstain,
Do whatever you
yeah.
want. Mr. Cahill?
No.
He's going to have to go if you don't stop.
Dr. Greenberg?
No on the vice attorneys.
Mr. Merwin? He should, okay. Mr.
Since I am-
Murphy?
Whoa, I gotta put something on the record. Since I am president of the Lawrence Harbor First Aid Squad and a former board member of OB Township EMS, I've been advised by the Township Council not to participate.
Mr. Murphy?
That is correct, Ms. Merwin.
Thank you.
Being
Mr. Murphy?
that possibly 3 squads could be bankrupt in the next 5 to 6 months, I am voting yes.
That's a yes. Mr. Pischetti?
No.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
On the advice of the attorney, no.
President Sohar?
No.
We have 2 yes, 5 no, 1 abstention. 2 abstentions, I'm sorry. 2 abstentions. Motion fails.
Politics wins, right? Next will be report of the Township Clerk. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we got to finish council comments. Anyone on this side of the dais? Mr. Murphy? Mr. Merwin? Okay.
That was such fun. I sympathize with the first aid squads, like I said, as I'm president of one of them.
Mr. Merwin, you have to talk into the mic, please. We can't hear you.
Okay, I was talking into the mic. Evidently, I was talking too low, something I'm not usually accused of. I am going to pass on this. Thank you. Disregard my public comments.
All right. Anyone else to my left for comments? To my right? Mr. Pischetti.
There's one thing that everyone needs to understand. When you're in this position, you're pretty much forced to take the advice of the attorney. If you don't take the advice of the attorney, you put yourself at risk for a lawsuit from any number of places. And if I go against the lawyer, then I put myself at risk, and then if I find myself in court, I don't have anybody to represent me, so I will have to pay for my own legal fees, right? So I have to follow the advice of the attorney, okay, because I don't have the money to fight a lawsuit. You know, I do empathize with the squads, I really do. I see 3 out of the 5 are billing, you know, 2 out of the 5 are billing. I don't know if that makes them able to continue in a positive fashion, but I don't know whether that's something that you could consider. But definitely, like Ms. Brown said, the town, the folks in the town or businesses that can donate to your squads, you know, that would be good, and that's a tax deduction for them as well. It's tax deductible. So I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to, you know, let everybody know. You know, on the MUA appointments, my son works for the MUA. I was told by the attorney that if my son lives with me. I can't vote on appointments, and that's why I had to abstain for that. I have to follow the attorney's decision, you know, whether I like it or not, you know, because of those reasons. Thank you.
I'll just confirm that I did give Mr. Pasquetti that advice.
Anyone else on my right?
Yeah, I do have one more comment. I actually would advise anybody who has a lot of opinions about what's going on to keep in mind that we have an election coming up. If you feel like you can handle the hot seat of making decisions like this, then please run and see how you would feel being on the other end of things and having to make decisions that everyone else doesn't necessarily agree with. I will say this again, and I'm glad that Mr. Pasquetti, seconded what I said. But essentially, there are decisions that were made prior to us getting up here on the dais that we can't control and we can't reverse. If anyone has a problem with it, they might want to talk amongst themselves, but I disagree with the disrespect that people bring into this courtroom. Everybody up here want an election whether you like it or not. If you don't want to vote us in again, I'll speak for myself. Maybe everyone else doesn't feel this way, but I've had people call me and say very rude things. I don't find that as a threat. You can say to me you won't vote for me again, that's fine. But I have to make the best decision that I can make up here with the information I have. And I'm going to say this one more time. If you have a problem with it, run for office in April. You have your chance. Go get your petition filled out and run for office and see if you can do it. I firmly implore you to do so. But please keep in mind what I'm saying too, okay? And keep the disrespect out of here, because everybody up here are doing their job. The people that work for the township are doing an awesome job. The mayor, everybody up here is taking the time to make the decisions they have to make, and it's not easy. And you're not always going to agree with it, but you also have to be respectful at the end of the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Brown. Anyone else? Mrs. Walker?
On a happy note, it's going to be the 150th anniversary of Old Bridge in March, and I'm on the Historical Society along with Dr. Greenberg, actually the mayor's on, and Councilwoman Sohor, and we are planning with the town a year-long celebration. So just keep your eyes open, and the TV's going to have announcements, so we're going to have a year-long celebration, so we'll be making announcements as things move forward a little more. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to wish everyone in 2019 a healthy, happy, prosperous new year, peace to everyone, and please know that we do try to always be fair, responsible, and respectful. And I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Anyone else for council comments? Okay, I will close the comments by also wishing you a very happy new year, and I do believe that sometimes it is the difficult decisions and not always easy to make. I think that we need responsibility, and sometimes you can't just do what you'd like to do. You have to do what is responsible to do and legal. So I will close the council comments. Thank you. Report of the Township Clerk.
Nothing else other than we are going out for resumes again. If you want to get involved, please send in your resumes to me. There will be a listing on the TV and on the website tomorrow, probably tomorrow late morning. So please look at it and get in your resumes if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you. I will take a motion for the clerk's report, please.
Move it.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Cahill. Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pasquetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soho?
Yes.
9 yes. Thank you.
Report of the Township Attorney.
Nothing to report, Madam President.
Thank you. Administrative report, Mr. Shah.
Thank you, Council President. There is no report at this meeting. I'll start my first report at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next will be the consent agenda. I will ask for a motion second. I will put it out to the public and then come back to the council members for their separations. Okay, we'll move it up. Mr. Rizzoli?
Second.
Second, Mrs. Walker. I will now open it to the public on any of the consent agenda items. See, come forward, please. Good evening. Happy New Year.
Item number 9, C9, Housing Authority contract. You're awarding it for $47,250. And the position is Affordable Housing Administrative Agent. I deal in code. I operate in other towns. Other towns appoint an employee to do this work. They give that employee a stipend anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500. That person then goes to school, gets all the credentials they need, and they handle that position. Why are we awarding a contract for $47,250 when other towns that I dealt with do it another way? Maybe it's something to consider. I'm just throwing that out there. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
I can address that.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr.
There's actually a couple issues. Number one, certainly you appointed housing liaison by resolution. In the past, the administrative duties were being undertaken by a township employee, but given the size of Old Bridge and the number of affordable units, it became basically overbearing for the individual employee to handle that responsibility. And then what we found was that there were items that were being missed, certain, when foreclosures come about, receiving the appropriate notice, getting the appropriate reports filed, and given what's, the future of affordable housing in the state, it seemed to be a more efficient and more effective way was to go out to bid and appoint an administrative agent. I would venture to say that most municipalities in New Jersey appoint an administrative agent by contract. Typically, smaller municipalities can handle somebody, does somebody in-house, and even in those instances where it is somebody in-house, it's their only job because it's become very difficult and complicated because of the regulations. The only other thing is that the monies being paid aren't out of the general fund. Those monies are paid out of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So again, the money basically is from developers, and the developers are the one paying it. So it used to be that way, but it just wasn't a way that for the township was efficient or effective.
Council President, if I may, just to clarify a couple of things. In the past, Old Bridge had a full-time employee handling COA units, and this contract includes not just the management, but also the rehab work. So they do oversee a lot of rehab work, which is very complicated rehab work. So I think this is an appropriate, and I think we save money using this approach.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to be heard? Seeing no hands, I will close the public portion, and I will now come to council for separations. Yes, Mr. Rizzoli.
C9, 10.
Wait 1 second.
Okay, sorry.
So, no, this way I make sure I recognize you. All right, so C9.
10.
And 10.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 22.
All right, wait 1 second. And then 22, not 21, correct?
22.
Okay. Now, anyone else on this left for separations? Yes, Mr. Merwin?
C2.
2, 4.
Anything else, Mr. Merwin? Okay, anyone else on my left? Anyone on my right? Oh, wait, okay, Mr. Murphy? C9 was already separated. Anyone else on my right? Mr. Piscitty?
C26.
C26. Anybody else for separations? No? Okay. Seeing no more hands for separations, I would like to ask for a motion to move the balance of the consent agenda.
Move it.
Second.
Okay, moved by Dr. Greenberg-Belli, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
All right, the ones that they'll be voting on are C1, C3.
Yep.
C5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 21, 23, 24, and 25.
Yes, okay. So,
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscatty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you,
Next.
everybody.
Next is C2, Mr. Merwin.
So,
Can't hear you.
right, because what,
Dave, can you speak? For some reason, we're having a hard time tonight hearing you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. We just want to make sure Stella keeps the record.
Why do we continually memorialize these votes?
right, so what happens is that Old Bridge is unique in this regard, where you have the public hearing on the release of the bonds. So, so while it is a voice vote, it's a matter of having documented that vote by way of resolution, so in the event in the future, if someone comes and questions what had happened, you have the resolution. Developers typically require it for the bonding company to release their bonds to show that there's official action.
Okay.
Okay? Anyone else for questions? Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Okay, moved by Dr. Greenberg-Belli, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscatty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Next is C4, Mr. Merwin.
Yes, I'm hoping that 1 year later, we will have the answer onto why we vote on this, or what license are we issuing?
Okay.
All right, we're issuing them their annual license. They still, even though I know that you say, and it's so, that they don't have the big races anymore, they still have a racetrack, they still have a sign out there, they still are Old Bridge Township Raceway Park,
Okay.
and they have to have a
What
license.
are we giving them a license for?
So they can operate in Old Bridge.
Operate as what?
As a raceway. They have functions there. They have mass assemblies there.
Which they have to
functions with-
apply for individually each time.
Right, but they still, being that they are a racetrack, they have to have a license in Old Bridge to operate.
Which I believe they gave up the license that would require that permit.
They never
Again,
gave up any, they never gave up any license as far as I know.
Another year.
Excuse me?
It's a year later, and we still don't know what we're voting on. What are we voting on?
We're voting on Raceway Park,
To be a racetrack.
What license are we issuing them?
Raceway license.
Raceway Park license, racetrack, a raceway.
Just for racing?
Correct.
Just for racing?
No. In order, well, under the ordinance, if I recall, and I have it in front of me, the ordinance has a requirement that if you're a raceway, that you have to make an application for a license to operate as a raceway.
And that's what we're giving them a license for?
Correct.
To be a raceway, right?
A raceway, right.
Nothing else?
That's not, right, it's just for a raceway.
Thank you.
So, right, so then as.
That's
event-
the answer.
Correct.
So do I have a motion now?
You have a motion.
Second.
So motion by Mr. Merwin, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscatty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Next will be C9, Mr. Rizzoli.
Yes, Madam President, basically what I'm going to be covering is C9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. My question is, to make an informed decision on this, I haven't, or I don't know if other members of council, I haven't received any of the other bids. There's multiple bids on the ones I separated, and I haven't been given any information, what amounts were bid on, who bid on what, in reference to this. So,
Councilor Senate Prime May, and I think
Yes.
Mark can add to that, but if you look at the resolution C8, which qualifies all the professional that submitted to be qualified, the process we have is that first, we have to go out for a request for qualifications, and all the professionals for each services that we have requested that submits the proposal. There are multiple professionals submits on certain things. There are in some cases, there's only one professional, but C8 attaches the list of every one of those professionals. From there, if you look at all of these professionals, we generally, based on the experience, qualification, we, administrations, along with the department, makes recommendations that, you know, these are the professionals that should be awarded the contract. Now, throughout the year, in certain circumstances, for example, engineering, engineer will go out and request for each services a separate request for pricing based on the project. And if you look at throughout the years, those, you know, she sends a recommendation based on the information she collected, the fees she received. And so, but in this case, all these professionals that we need are on board from the beginning of the year. So that's why we recommend them for individual contract.
Good enough, thank you. Can move it.
Right, just so to clear what happens under the Faulkner Act, because again, the contracts themselves, when we do the RFP process, Ms. Rizzoli, it's the RFP proposal is pretty in-depth and requires submission of a lot of information. And so then there's the committee, again, what Mr. Shaw had indicated, includes myself, the mayor, Mr. Shaw, and then depending on whatever the department is, they'll review the proposals that come back, and based upon experience, based upon their knowledge of the municipality, you know, we believe that they're the appropriate professional. And then what council is doing in this instance is approving the contract. Certainly, if you have any questions with respect to the qualifications, there's a boatload of proposals in my office, a boatload of proposals in the clerk's office for everybody to review. But I can assure you that when we go through these, for instance, some of them over the years have provided, we've reduced the value of many of the contracts, if not most of the contracts over the years. So and the professionals who submit, they know that. So it's none of these contracts, I shouldn't say that, but I'm pretty sure, do not exceed last year's contract amounts. So that's how we get to this particular point. And again, what council is being asked to do is to approve, actually to approve the contract, because under the Faulkner Act, the mayor is responsible for negotiating the contracts.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Sure.
any other questions? Okay, so are we going to do them individually, or can? Okay, so it would be C9, 10, 13, 14, wait, Mr.
No, I still have 9.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, no, these were, oh, you still want, oh, all right, so we're going to leave 9 alone then. We'll do 10, all right?
14.
All right, 10, yeah, we got to make sure this is on record. 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, okay? Everyone is clear on what we're voting on?
What about 22?
No,
No,
22.
no, he said no, so that's, okay, so that's section.
Okay.
All right, so do I have a motion for those?
Move it.
Rizzoli?
Second?
For which one?
Okay, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Who was the motion by?
Mr. Schetti? Did you move them, Tony?
Yeah, I did.
Yes, okay,
Then you
yes.
have to speak up.
Yeah, please, everyone
You have
try
to
to speak
speak up.
into your mic, okay? So Mr. Piscetti made the motion, Mr. Rizzoli made the second.
Mrs. Brown?
Off
He's
days.
off dais.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Sohar?
Yes.
8 yes.
Okay, now C9, Mr. Murphy had questions, okay.
About a week ago, I had a resident call me to ask me, how did he go about applying for COA? I told him I didn't know and I would get back to him. I called somebody from the town. They said, we really don't have anybody like that, but the best person would be to speak to would be the engineer. Now, I haven't heard back from him. He told me he was going to the state to see, because that's what they said he might have to do. I don't know if he ever spoke to the engineer. Did he ever speak to you? Okay, well, I was still told we don't have one. Is that person we just talked about before, where it says COA after name, does he have COA applications? Can he apply through him?
You can certainly, anybody can apply. We have a number of ways, but certainly if somebody calls engineering department, they should guide them or connect them with the CGP&H, our consultants, to process the applications. Also, there are information available online on our website. There's a link to CGP&H, there are forms. If you have that person's name, if you can send it to me. I'm not sure who told you we don't have anybody, but...
I don't want to say who it was, but it was somebody...
Well, I mean, nobody at the town should say we don't have it, but we have a plenty of lists, we have rating lists that we maintain.
Okay, so they can go to the township to apply for COA in Old Bridge?
We'll direct them to proper person to connect with them. If they come to the town hall, go to engineering office or my office.
Why can't they go to the person that...
The CGP&H are not based on the township.
So as many as COA homes as we have, we don't have a COA agent?
Again, we have a housing liaison, which is a municipal employee required by law. We have an administrative agent. The documents themselves are available. The documents get filled out and they get submitted. The administrative agent is a contract, just like many of our professionals. And I can assure you, they've been doing this for a very long time. So it's something that can be done over the phone if necessary, if they don't have a computer. It can be done via email if they have a computer. But it's something that, again, the application process, and there's someone with the firm who will help someone go through the process if they need help.
Okay.
So if they need, their initial contact can be with the township, as Himanshu indicated. They can either come to the administrative office, they can go up to community development office, they can even ask me, and we'll get them into contact with the right person.
How about if I just have him call Mr. Shaw?
That's fine.
And ask him, I'll just give him your name and number, and you can direct him where to go.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm good with
All
it.
right, so do we have a motion now for C9?
Move it.
Second.
Okay, so we moved it by Mr. Merlin, second by Mr. Murphy. Okay,
Was the motion moved by?
Mr. Merlin.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscitty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Next will be C22, Mr. Rizzoli.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, reference to Mr. Allison, who's happened to be involved with some, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Reference to
please.
Mr. Allison, who was involved with some disciplinary issues. I'll just read that to you. His information came to the attention of the Ethics Charging Authority, the ECA, comprised of the AICPA Professional Ethics Executive Committee and the Jersey Society of CPAs Professional Ethics Committee, alleging potential disciplinary matter with respect to Mr. Allison's performance of professional services on the audit of the financial statements of a government entity as of and for the year ended in December 31st, 2012. As a result of an investigation, alleged violations of the Codes of Professional Conduct of the AICPA, the New Jersey Society of CPAs, Mr. Allison, with the firm of Holman, Farina, and Allison PC, entered into a settlement agreement under the Joint Ethics Enforcement Code, effective January 3, 2018. I'd just like to move the table at this time to make sure he conformed with all the stipulations within the agreement.
I thought this issue came up before at the redevelopment agency. My understanding is that those concerns were resolved, but, certainly we can, if you want to do table, that's, and appoint at the next meeting, but we'll need an auditor on board. Now, Mr. Allison is that firm is the only firm that has submitted fair and open, so we don't have option. No, there's only one firm on the auditor.
I'm not sure, you're saying that...
I'm not saying to exclude him, I just want to know that, he
Did what
conformed
he's
with...
supposed to do.
That's all.
I can certainly...
resolute.
We can certainly verify those concerns.
Wouldn't the auditor be a council appointee?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure of that.
But I'm not sure, you're saying that they're also the auditor for the redevelopment authority
Yes, they're a redevelopment agency.
and the MUA? Aren't they the auditor for the MUA also, and the township?
I don't know about the MUA, but I know they're township and the redevelopment agency. I mean, it doesn't make sense for a redevelopment agency, which is a very small operation, to have a separate auditors, because it would cost us a lot more.
You want to table it?
That's fine.
or-
No, he verified that you did.
Oh, so
you
we,
did what you had to do.
all right, so
So-
then we just need a motion.
Motion.
You're making it?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Rizzoli?
To approve it.
Move it?
Okay, motion is Mr. Rizzoli. Second?
Yeah, sorry, I was going to second it, never mind.
Okay.
Or I was going to say yes. But
Thank
I'll
you.
second it too.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Sorry, what do we, is this
Moving
the table?
22. No.
For-
No. We're moving on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay.
Just move.
Mr. Murphy?
Abstain.
Mr. Biscotti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
7 yes, 2 abstentions.
Next is C26, Mr. Pescetti.
Yes, this is the depositories for 2019, and I want to make an edit. I would like to remove Bank of America and PNC Bank. Those two banks actually hold the notes on the majority of the vacant homes in the town. And I think we have plenty of depositories. I would like to see those two banks removed.
I don't believe we have any deposit with the Bank of America or PNC. I mean, we like to keep the list as many banks as possible because the township is under the statute. I'm only required to invest in funds in the bank that has a state certification. They're called Government Unit Deposit Trust Act. They have to be certified because they have to maintain certain reserve. So I like to keep them, but I can tell you that they never compete with the rate with us, so we don't do banking with them. But if you want to remove it, it's not going to affect this year. So if you want to remove it, that's fine. But we haven't done business with the both bank for several years now. I mean, many years.
Shouldn't be a problem to remove them, then, right?
No.
So then we have to, Mr. Roselli, how do we?
Yeah, you can just do a motion to amend Resolution C26 to delete the Bank of America and PNC Bank as depositories.
Okay,
I'd
so,
like to make that motion.
all right, Mr. Pescetti made the motion to delete those two banks from C26.
I need a second.
Anyone seconding that?
No second? Okay,
I hear crickets.
so then we're leaving it?
All right, so motion fails. We will go on again to C26
26.
as is. Moved by Mr. Cahill, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Off days.
Mr. Biscotti?
No.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
7 yes and 1 no.
We don't have any ordinances for first reading this evening. Next will be public comments on any subject matter. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard?
Alan Rosencrantz, 8 David Drive, Old Bridge. Just a comment. When the council passes a resolution or a consent agenda to hire attorneys or professionals, it's the professionals that are in the business to give you advice that you hire from. You may not like what they have to say, i.e. the EMT and that litigation, but they give you sound advice based upon their experience and their legal knowledge. You may not have to like it. Just like if you go to a doctor and they give you a bad diagnosis, you still have to pay them and you still have to listen to what they say. If he's a professional, Mr. Rizzoli is, then we should listen to him. And anybody that wants to go against sound advice legally, I think you're making a grave error for the township. And thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to be heard this evening? Seeing no hands, I will now close the public comments. Thank you. Next, we'll be making a motion.
Right, a motion, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Need a motion to adopt, and we'll be adjourning to go into executive session, ES1, regarding litigation matter involving OB Thames.
Second.
Okay, moved by Dr. Greenberg Belli, second by Mr. Rizzoli. Are we coming back?
No, we're adjourning.
We're adjourning then, after that?
Be adjourning after that.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg? Dr. Greenberg? Mr. Merwin? Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Fischetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.